classroom are...
A girl walked by the window and stopped for seashells. I was wrenched out of 2 months of calm. Nothing more than that, certainly. Nothing ecstatic or even interesting, but very silent and even as those periods have become. I had been breathing in and out and in, calmly, grateful for once to do just that, staring at the waves plopping in, successful at thinking almost nothing, handling easily the 3 memories I've manufactured, when that girl stooped for seashells. There was something about her large breasts under her faded blue t-shirt, the quick way she bent down, her firm legs in their rolled-up white jeans, her thin ankles. It was her feet, actually. They seemed for a brief, painful moment to be elegant. It was that thin-boned, brittle movement with her feet that did it, that touched some spot that I had forgotten to smother. The way those thin feet remained planted, yet shifting slightly in the sand, as she bent down quickly for a clamshell, sent my heart thumping, my mouth dry, no exaggeration. There was something gay and insane about that tiny gesture because it had nothing to do with her. I went to Smitty's, a roadhouse a quarter of a mile down the beach. When I came back, she was gone. I could not sit in my room. The walls closed in on me. I could see the walls closing in on me, and my situation, if that is what it is, a situation, seemed so dull and hopeless, this cheap, thrown-together guest house.
Let me show in a parable to what extent our nature is enlightened or unenlightened. Envision human figures living in an underground cave with a long entrance across the whole width of the cave. Here they have been from their childhood and have their legs and necks chained so that they cannot move and can only see before them, being prevented by the chains from turning their heads around. Above and behind them, a fire is blazing at a distance. They see only their own shadows, which the fire throws on the opposite wall of the cave. For how could they see anything but the shadows if they were never allowed to move their heads? Between the fire and the prisoners, there is a raised way and a low wall built along the way like the screen which puppet players have in front of them, over which they show the puppets. Do you see men passing along the wall, carrying all sorts of articles which they hold projected above the wall? Statues of men and animals made of wood and stone and various materials? Of the objects which are being carried in like manner, they would only see the shadows. And if they were able to converse with one another, would they not suppose that they were naming what was actually before them? And suppose further that there was an echo which came from the wall. Would they not be sure to think when one of the passers-by spoke that the voice came from the passing shadows? To them, the truth would be literally nothing but the shadows of the images. And now look again and see what will naturally follow if one of the prisoners is released. At first, when he is liberated and compelled suddenly to stand up and turn his head round and look towards the light, all this would hurt him, and he would be much too dazzled to see distinctly those things whose shadows he had seen before. And then conceive someone saying to him that what he saw before was an illusion, but that now, when he's approaching nearer to reality and his eyes turn toward more real existence, he has a clearer vision. What will be his reply? And you may further imagine that his instructor is pointing to the objects as they pass and requiring him to name them. Will he not be perplexed? will he not think that the shadows which he formerly saw are truer than the objects which are now shown to him? And suppose once more that he is reluctantly dragged up a steep and rugged ascent and held fast until he is forced into the presence of the sun himself. When he approaches the light, his eyes will be dazzled, and he will not be able to see anything at all of what are now called realities. He will require to grow accustomed to the sight of the upper world. And first he will see the shadows best. Next, the reflections of objects in the water, and then the objects themselves. Then he will gaze upon the stars and the spangled heavens and the light of the moon. He will see the sky and the stars by night. Last of all, he will be able to see the sun, and not mere reflections of it in the water, but he will see the sun in its own proper place and not in another. And he will contemplate the sun as it is. Will he not then proceed to argue that it is the sun who gives the season and the years, and is the guardian of all that is in the visible world, and in a certain way the cause of all things which his fellows have been accustomed to behold? Clearly he would first see the sun, and then reason about it. And when he remembered his old habitation and what was the wisdom of the cave and his fellow prisoners, do you not suppose that he would bless himself for the change and pity them? And if they were in the habit of conferring honors among themselves on those who were the quickest to observe the passing shadows, and to remark which of them went before and which followed after, and which were together, and who were therefore best able to draw conclusions as to the future, do you think that he would care for such honors and glories, or envy the possessors of them? Would he not say with Homer, "Better to be the poor servant of a poor master, and to endure anything rather than think as they do and live after their manner"? Imagine once more such a one coming suddenly out of the sun to be replaced in his old situation. Would he not be certain to have his eyes full of darkness? And if there were a contest of measuring the shadows, and he had to compete with the prisoners who had never moved out of the den, while his sight was still weak and before his eyes had become steady, wouldn't they all laugh at him and say he had spoiled his eyesight by going up there, and that it was better not to even think of ascending? And if anyone tried to release another and lead him up to the light, let them only catch the offender, and they would put him to death. It is the task of the enlightened not only to ascend to learning and to see the good, but to be willing to descend again to those prisoners and to share their troubles and their honors, whether they are worth having or not. And this they must do, even with the prospect of death. They shall give of their help to one another, wherever each class is able to help the community.
That's it. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Supermen indeed. Rather is it you who are the imbeciles. It is your minds which are tainted along with all your works. It is you who are the stupid fools. But try to remember this. Burn anything you like. It's of no use, Nazis, for always from the charred remains of books, paintings, musical instruments, and the ashes of burned musical compositions, will ever arise the eternal spirit of truth, freedom, and beauty, to be reborn again and again in the hearts of men, women, and children all over the world.
Pray. Enter into the inner chamber and close the door. The Father who sees you in secret.
armchair travelers as well as others coming along. As this is a reconnaissance flight, only a few passengers have been invited. This space flight to Mars and visit to the underground cities is not fiction, but is a factual, psychic, mental happening, wherein you, the listener, will be taken psychically along with us in this great historical event. We sense that you are interested in some data regarding the craft in which you will be taking your space flight. You can see that it is one of the circular type vessels, similar in appearance to two inverted bowls with tops together. The craft is 300 feet in diameter and 100 feet from top to bottom, with the three familiar ball landing gear. Many openings are portholes. It is shiny, silver or chrome in appearance, a mixture made of crystal and gold, is completely uncluttered with furnishings. The main object in this section is the viewing lens, located here in the center. The lens has the appearance of an inverted, large crystal bowl, and it is to us most beautiful. We can, by the touch of one of these colored lights, cause the lens to become a huge magnifier to bring small size objects up close to inspect. The other object, the shaft, this is the device that makes possible the maneuverability of our ship. It is operable by what we term the energy phase reversal concept, a very simple principle in which we use the natural magnetic lines of force in reverse to that which the planets are held in place by them. We reverse this polarization, which pushes our craft away from the world. This is how and why we can so-called travel at such high rates of speed. We move with great magnetic fields, speeds far beyond those of which man on your Earth has imagined. After we get underway, if you have questions, feel free to ask, and you may tilt back your couch for greater comfort. The hostess will supply you with delectable nectar that both is delicious and nourishing. Soon now we shall be readied for liftoff. We are happy to see that many of you visitors are scientifically minded. We have extended and lowered our boarding apparatus upon the ground of your planet, and two of the entrance doors are now closed, ready for takeoff. We have selected the particular craft, which we term our vehicles of light, according to our need. Certain ships can easily accommodate 1,000 persons and remain in flight for several years if need be.
died upon a tree. After 3 days he rose again, palm branches into the promised land, a house not made by hands, a multitude of delusions, finally swept away. From the ethers he made the fish and the bread. He answered the call to the shower of the way, 'cause he loved the world so much that will shall find its rightful place. The arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards God's amazing grace. Kindness to mankind, strength to the meek, healing to the blind, strength to those that justice seek, kindness to mankind, strength to the meek, healing to the blind, strength to those that justice seek.
medical facts, economic facts. They go on and on and on, and they change as our understanding changes. And they're all effects. Let's not put the energy of our thoughts and feelings into them, but just see them objectively. But take them out of your consciousness. Do whatever to you would symbolize knowing that this is not part of you. It's an experience. But the experience will change. In these moments, at least, you would spend with that of you that is unchanging. Come into that inner chamber where only you can go. You close the door and all of that. And what do you find? You find yourself. Without trying, you feel an inner security that you cannot describe. You feel a different heart throb. For it's the heartbeat of the universe, expressing individually where you are. It's the still small voice of assurance that says, I am you. I'm right here. And I have created you in my image and likeness that I may express as you. I am allness. I am wholeness. I am that you call energy, that you call life. I am that you call creativity. I am you. Our world around us is experiencing the season of the harvest. What about your inner world? How many harvests have you experienced in spirit? How many moments have there been that you felt was the fullness of time for that moment? Whether it was a glimmer of insight, whether it was an experience of suddenly giving way to an inner joy for no other reason. Perhaps just a touch of hope where there might have been despair. An awareness of light. A knowingness that I am eternal. I live forever in the eternal now. How many experiences have you actually grown through? Not just gone through, but grown through. How many times have you seen that things that might have seemed frightening turned out to be the very best? Because you allowed that energy to come together and express. Feel yourself gathering again, gathering in consciousness, not in terms of possessing. You don't possess them, they're part of you. But how rich is this inner spiritual harvest? Let your thoughts and your feelings in fullness become aware of that energy, of that activity. If you want to call it a presence or a principle, unchanging law, those are all words, it doesn't matter, as long as you understand. And allow yourself to expand with it. Allow your consciousness to accept and radiate.
Beechnut has a new gum. Beechnut Fancy Fruit. Fancy that. Beechnut has a new gum. Beechnut Fancy Fruit.
Fancy that.
Beechnut has a new gum. Beechnut Fancy Fruit. Fancy that. Fancy Fruit hangs on to flavor. What flavor? Fancy flavor.
Fancy what?
Fancy Fruit by Beechnut. What nut?
So you see,
By
we scientists
Beechnut.
are in
By
for
gum.
many surprises when we Space Brothers come to your Earth. And yes, we received your mental query. We are planning a visit to Earth, and soon. We shall come not only in one single craft, but many ships shall join in this historical event of the joining of our worlds in brotherly companionship. You are not aware of the fact, but none of you passengers are in the complete physical state that you were before entering our craft. As you pass through the arched entranceway, a particular energy beam has changed your atomic structures in order that you could be compatible rapport with the craft, a necessity for all space travelers. Norel, the leader of the planet Mars, will usher and guide you through part of the city of Mars. There are numerous cities underground. The Martians have created for themselves quite a comfortable and colorful way of life beneath the surface. Now I see my space brother, Captain Miller, is ready at the controls for takeoff, so relax and prepare for your first flight into space. But be not surprised that you may not feel the customary acceleration, for your physical atoms have been changed in frequency, and there will be no unpleasant feelings that you will note. Now I see the red directional lights are on, indicated that we are in liftoff. Our thrust and motivation is totally electronic in nature, silent, smooth, and swift. We are now ascending straight up. Now if you will look into the viewing lens, you will see below your beautiful world in full color. We are now ascending so rapidly that your globe seems to quickly shrink in size, and almost before I have said it, the beautiful planet Earth has diminished to the size of a mere baseball. And even now, your Earth is no longer visible. You are unaware in any way that we are traveling at the rate of 15,000 miles per second. And if you will look toward the sides of the ship through the portholes, you see no evidence of motion. Soon now you will see the forward direction, your sun, becoming larger and larger. And now the planet Mars is visible, and it seems to grow larger in size. Mars being our destination for this trip, and we are headed directly toward it, and seemingly into it. Now it appears as a great wall before us, and the pilot has reversed the magnetic poles controlling the craft. And you wonder that the time involved has seemed so brief. We are preparing for docking, a contact arrangement necessary for our craft to literally extend a portion of our inter-airlock system into the entranceway of the very surface of Mars itself. As we are not in line with the sun's rays, all is in blackness. But we are, as you see, supplying you with video showing of much that you'll soon see below within the planet Mars. The planet Mars is far above, if we can use the term, the Earth world in its awareness of life and of the infinite. However, there are countless other worlds, in fact, there are beyond number, whose ways of life and their awareness cause Mars to appear quite elemental, even though Mars and its people are far more advanced in technocracy to that of the Earth. Your Earth scientist must drop his swaddling clothes of materialism and begin to test his legs of spirituality and learn of the inner life, how to prepare himself for better lifestyles in the future, a future existent long after his physical has ceased to function. Spiritual growth is a wondrous and exciting new way of life, an experience you'll want to share with all whom you meet. So space travelers, as you now see on the overhead viewing screen, we are now in communication with our Martian brothers who have instructed us with our docking procedure and are now in plotting coordinates over the circular airlock in preparation for our actual descent into the Martian cities. Docking completed, elevator in readiness to descend into Martian City. Now, this craft is the vanguard from the great confederation of planets now being formulated to help initiate your leaders of the Earth people. This is the first flight to establish personal contact between we, the members of the Confederation, and the newly joining member, the Earth. Yes, your Earth planet is the 33rd member of a pre-designed plan instituted many thousands of years ago, and all other 32 worlds have already solidified their membership. But come now, I see the craft has made necessary connections with the airlocks of Mars and await us to descend, yes, into the very planet of Mars itself. Surely a momentous occasion for all. Evolutionary wisdom is the main topic of all soul travelers, and the principles are shared by all. Most planets have had inner communication for many thousands of years. Even your Earth has at one time, over 65,000 years ago, enjoyed the use of these craft. The Martians were first forced to grow underground due to a nova that was headed for their planet. With the aid of their powerful scopes, they saw this oncoming tragedy and averted it by tunneling underground. Fortunately, they did have several hundred years' notice and could prepare well. It was a gigantic task, but has proven most successful. Through the many thousands of years of time, many cities have been added, and they carry on in nearly every way in which they normally lived and have progressed their evolution far above that of your Earth way of life. This city is but one of many, all connected, and the double trapdoor entranceways are but one of the many that crisscross the surface of Mars so that one will experience no contamination from so much. And may we from Earth present to you our gift. It is a bare root of an ever-blossoming tree, never without colorful flowers of several shades on one tree, a special development inspired by an Earthian called Luther Burbank.
We do thank you and shall treasure this gift always.
And now here we shall see what we have come so far to see. Then it appeared, our very first glimpse of a magnificent Martian city. We see before us a great panorama of color of light, of beautiful buildings and flowers galore, gardens both hanging and planted, everything with precision, the sculptured garden, a literal paradise that seemingly fills this great circular area, which is over a mile in diameter. Gardens, trees, and paintings of beauty not only fill what would normally be our streets, but also do the growing things cover halfway up the sides of the city. At the lower portion of the sidewalls are several tiers where are grown seedlings, fruit trees and vegetables, as well as a variety of flowers. The entire ceiling area appears as a twilight sky with the golden stars blinking to convey realism, and at proper cycles the moon appears. But it is all too much to take in at once. A momentary glance is a breathtaking experience. And I'd never imagined such an array of color would be expressed so appealingly. Their mode of travel is done via the shuttlecraft that moves silently over the ground, the moving sidewalks constantly in motion below, and the overhead tramways ever present when needed furnish an abundance of travel conveniences. Reflection pools, flowing fountains, statuary, and ornamentations of a large variety are here viewed at our first surprising glimpse of their beautiful city as heavenly music surrounds us. The exotic beauty, the heavenly loveliness related herein, all does indeed express the love and harmonious life of the Martian people who have created all this beauty. The people here all express a love for all creation. They have learned, in freeing themselves of age-old ties, how to discharge these unwanted problems. And this personal self-therapy has instilled within the people a harmonious relationship, which they also extend to all visitors. There are no attitudes or feelings that one is better than the other. The entire frequency within the planet Mars is a peaceful one minus smog, warring, and overpopulation. Now will we enter the tram, which can slip so rapidly and silently over the very top area of the city. that 200 miles per hour is attained. Building cities underground is not a common way of life on most of our planets in this universe. But in such cases of emergency, it can well be done and life lived quite comfortably. You will note as we move on, the great areas for foodstuff is isolated or separated from the areas of growing flowers, trees, and shrubs and grasses in the tubes as we pass through. Yes, the Martians do grow all things they desire on their great lower flat areas and on the curved side or walled-in areas in the great distances between the cities. We must say the entire cities are lined with this silver, reflective, metallic-looking substance. This creates a controlled temperature. Now we come to the residential area of the city. The homes, as you see, never seeing a duplicate scene, but one's conscious mind is incapable of coping with such diversity and absorbing such abundance. Of course, this rapid tour aboard the tram has caused even more reluctance to leave, but depart we must. We see nothing to remind us of any primitive life, for as we learned now, Martians have evolved quite far beyond that of the Earthians. We learned about the very gigantic machinery used so necessary to keep all their travel apparatus functioning. Turbines, he has said, of a gigantic size that occupied one entire mile square city. Bearing in mind these cities cross and crisscross the entire planet of Mars. And it is in these indentations in the terrain where the sands have shifted that the astronomers on the Earth have called canals. If they only knew, and what a surprise it will be to them when they too can actually see for themselves this abundant life lived in such harmony, all carried on so scientifically and beautifully.
You're just part of everything. Part of the whole universe that you call good. Part of the creative word that is constantly saying, let there be. Let there be a flow of His presence. Let there be an expression of His presence. And let's remember what else it tells us. And the Father who sees you in secret rewards you openly. And let's not get caught into a game of making points. What is it really saying? Isn't it reminding us of a law of cause and effect? Isn't it saying this is where your security is? That which you accept in consciousness by spiritual nature unfolds out there. But first you must accept it in the deep, deep place of your consciousness. Not trying to make it so, but knowing it is so. Not trying to possess it, but knowing this is who and what I am. Not reaching out, but unfolding within. Not wondering will it work, but knowing I am principle in action.
Who controls the media? Programs your brain.
Marshall McLuhan said, change the language and you change the universe. Now, here in 1993, we are creating a new language, a language of light and electrons beamed around the world at the speed of light. The global village, humanity united in the airwaves, united brain to brain at the speed of light. A new breed, a new language, a new human species, united, vibrating, harmonizing at the speed of light, at the speed of light.
With the pulsar, what I'm going to do from the musical point of view is to use the pulsar as a cosmic drummer. In terms of scientific research, I want to experiment if sound might be used for investigation for the universe, if sound may reflect chemical properties, maybe physical properties, maybe chemical properties. And I started to build up my catalogation of sound, celestial sound, and then to start to make comparison. I have a galaxy, next one is a pulsar, next one is a plasma wave, catalog the universe using sound.
Who programs our brains? Who programs our brains? They who control our screens. They who control our eyeballs and our earballs control our brain.
I know how it feels, and I want to go further. Why do I want to go further? To be free. Why do I want to be free? So I can choose. Why do I want to choose? Because it's more fun than being someone I didn't choose to be. This is the real essence. What all this could lead to. Breaking down your own self.
Look within. Know thyself.
And I have just seen the play Timothy and Charlie. It's a play about an actual life adventure of mine in which I was in a cell in Folsom Prison, and the next cell was Charles Manson, and some wild things happened.
The book by the humans, because it offers an additional alternative.
Now, I started telling you about Argentina. I don't know whether we'll go back to that, but I'll tell you how we stopped.
They came to Socrates and said, "Stop saying that, Socrates. You're corrupting the minds of youth. There is no self. There is no knowledge. Obey. Believe."
It's refreshment time!
Socrates would not be stopped. He said, "Know thyself. Know thyself. Know thyself.
Everything I've been trying to tell you today is you're not going to be passively watching this. You're going to be using the screen as a brain phone.
Sure is great being on a drive-in watching Super Flick and eating all this great food.
This flick is making me hungry.
It makes me want to flick my bick.
We should have gone to the drive-in where we could eat and flick to our heart's content.
Well, what are we waiting for?
Well, come on then. I'm going to have a pizza and popcorn and ice cream.
And I'm gonna have a burger with fries and a soft drink. Yum! Yum!
People. Since you are aware of these healing principles and expressions, and the Earthman has heard nothing about this, evidently your planet is far in advance to that of the Earth.
When we lay down the concept that one man be not supreme over another, that was the great stepping stone to understanding a life force. The Earthman has not come to that point yet, and when he does, then he too will evolve into these understandings. We made this junction about 250,000 years ago, when we laid down and discontinued the imaginary boundaries of separate nations.
It is also very interesting that words fail me to express my great interest and enthusiasm to all that I have seen and heard. And I want to tell you, dear friend and brother Nerel, how great it has been. We thank you from our innermost nature.
And we thank you, dear one, for making this stop in your journey into the stars. And yes, this is my great privilege, for I have been designated as an emissary and a guide to allow all beings who wish to know of our way of life to show them our way, that they too may know of love.
Although I have made many visitations to numerous planets, yet I have never experienced the deep concern which I feel with your Mars planet and people.
Yes, our dear sister and spiritual leader of the many planets, you are here especially to help polarize Mars in preparation for our emergence from underground, whereby we will again re-inhabit the surface of Mars. So your consciousness here within and upon this planet is of vital importance to this world. Moreover, you are in this conscious awareness setting up the frequencies and oscillation whereby the Earth people will in the future make these space flights from the Earth to Mars. Thus, this polarization is serving a dual benefit.
I am sure that the brief time this particular flight has permitted us to spend here is sufficient only to give us a mere cursory glance over your many cities that are truly surprisingly tremendous in size. That we see no sign of them above the ground is quite astounding to think what has been accomplished here in these comparatively few 70,000 years.
All aboard seem absorbed in thought, that nary a word is spoken. All are deep in contemplation, our beautiful circular disk darting toward Earth at an inconceivable speed moves as a bullet, yet silently the only sound heard is the beautiful music of the spheres. Scientists and other passengers aboard are not interested in the television, for our Martian trip has been a most sobering one. When we conceive how successfully and harmoniously these little people live after the great inconveniences they have overcome. And now, fellow travelers, as you have witnessed life as it exists on your sister planet Mars, return to your Earth scientists and relate not only what you have learned of Mars, but tell them also of the countless other worlds of solar systems which are infinite in number and nature, peopled with intelligent lifestyles so far beyond that of the Earth that it is beyond their present conception. Yes, and of galaxies and even universes beyond universes, as countless as the grains of sand and without number. And yet, with all of this, we, the spiritual brothers of space, are motivating and directing all of this positive, creative, evolutionary expression, as we also project unto you, each soul, our infinite radiations. Moreover, just as soon as you Earth people can conceive of we space brothers and will welcome us in your hearts, we shall descend to your Earth planet in a physical spacecraft landing. We shall come in peace and with brotherly love. The powers of the infinite shall be with you. Uriel, the Space Fleet Coordinator. Translucent crystal, metallic combination not known on Earth. We see before us one taller, spiked building, a main governmental structure, very brilliantly colored, surrounded with colorful flowers. Many rooftops are built low to the ground for preservation of space, so the houses as a whole reflect a rounding or domed top in lovely symmetry. There are no sad, weary, taut-drawn faces in frowns, but the Martians live more from their inner natures and are at peace. Yes, we see many effects of these artistic abilities with the Oriental people in their clothing, their fine silks and paintings and gardens. We see now the great libraries. These artistic people have spent much time in the exquisite and elaborate designs so pleasing to the eye. One could spend several years here in this and the connecting cities to familiarize oneself with life on Mars. Yet Mars is not considered as one of the highest in development, for it is still a physical Earth planet. The more sensitive souls on Mars can and do attune and communicate with worlds of a higher development. Brother Nurel is the leader of this planet and is a very distinguished soul, as you see, and more highly developed spiritually. He is some taller than most here, wearing the red loose smock that designates his scientific position. However, his people do not worship him as their leader, as is often on your Earth world. He is highly respected for his intelligence and kindness to all persons. Nurel has been their leader for many thousands of years. He has reincarnated many times back into the planet Mars. He is teaching many to become teachers that they may teach others in a constant and never-ending way to improve their lives and cities. The Martians are most progressive people. The homes, as you can see, are a symmetry of beauty. Color has been tossed about seemingly as if with a giant paintbrush, and yet all is harmonious, and the expressions and designs mean many things to many people. Here is a home that we can enter, and you can see the simplicity in design. Although the ceilings are quite low, nothing is cluttered. The youth is especially concerned with photography and movie making. The movie screens often fill an entire wall on Mars, and they have developed their third-dimensional movies. They are learning the art of psychokinesis, mental projection, by those creating the movies, whereby the viewers of the films will mentally sense the intelligence conveyed. This is something about which the Earthman knows little or nothing as yet. But now I see the Mars leader, Nurel, is ready to direct your tour.
Yes, friends, do come along. The buildings we are approaching appear to be clear glass on the outside and frosted, so we can't see inside. It seems of such great importance, so let's go in and see. This is our museum of our past ages, of our history, and if you will follow me, you will see upon entering this wide oval opening that on the inside there appears to be many, many crystal globes resting on pedestals. Within these globes is a chemical substance that we have prepared eons ago to sustain a miniaturized version of living plants and animals and various accoutrements of our life. When we lived on the surface of this planet before the great catastrophe took place, as we saw through our telescopes the great nova coming toward us in this solar system, we vowed that our civilization would be maintained and preserved for future use when the planet's surface can again be re-inhabited by us. So we set about to miniaturize the living organisms on the surface of the planet and place them in this fluid substance in these globular structures so that they can live out a more or less suspended animation life. This fluid helps them keep their attachment with their psychic anatomies in a more or less freezed condition. We have created these structures to bring about in the future the repopulation of the verdant growth of our planet. And not only the living organisms have we preserved for our future, but we have also preserved the buildings, which we maintained when we were on the surface because of their tremendous height in their physical structural form. For instance, if you will look in one of these globes, I will hand you one of our magnifiers, which looks like a long crystal tube of solid crystal. You will peer into this globe, and before your very eyes will be a magnified sight of one of these great and vast buildings. While looking at it with the normal eye, it appears to be microscopic, but now you can see it appears to be a gigantic pyramid.
Yes, it really does. It magnifies beautifully.
And if you will look even closer, you can magnify the building to see the very substance itself, and it seems to glow and radiate out sparks of light. This is so because we used material in this long ago to attract the sun's rays to store energy. This is what this particular building was for, and will become so again in our future. We have used other sources since we have come underground, but this building was given to us in its scientific form by great masters from other worlds, when we knew not of these energy sources. So we look forward to building these vast creative edifices in the future.
When your civilization lived on top of the ground, was this museum existent?
No, it was created later, because we had no necessity for it. The surface life on our planet was in abundance, and we had all of these life forms all about us, and existed in harmony with them. Yet when the surface was about to be destroyed, we knew the great importance to preserve these fineries of our life. We knew also that it would be many eons before we could maintain them on the surface. So, as I've said, the scientists of our world devised a great plan that they would germinate these seeds from the original structures themselves to repopulate our surface. We have preserved these beautiful and wonderful creations of nature, and in these beauties we envision the face of our infinite Father, as all men do eventually learn that these too are a part of themselves. You can see in another globe, if you will follow me, great and beautiful statuary and artistic configurations which were created by our great artists of the past. These are done also in miniature, as we do not have the room to keep these great monuments to our past in their life size.
Well, there is no need for life size. We can view them so beautifully. Through these tubes, they immediately take on its full life size.
Yes, indeed, this is so, and even if it weren't so, we could not have it in its original life size, For the statue you are peering at now is a structure that was 200 feet in height, and it was actually carved out of a mountain by the artisans. It took 2,000 artisans to carve this great monument to our founder and our technological civilization. If you will notice closely, this great being has unto herself a vast array of angels, or as you would call them, cherubs, surrounding her head. We did not worship this great statue, but we did revere this symbology of her presence.
1780, an event involving an unusual darkening of the day sky was seen over the New England states and parts of Canada. Adventist historical theologian Woodrow Wilson told Adventist Today that the dark day was seen as a sign by the rising Adventist movement that the coming of Christ was near. And quote, in 1805 an eclipse known as Tecumseh's eclipse passed through the southwest to northeast of the United States. The reason it was called Tecumseh's eclipse is recounted on the Wikipedia page.
Status as we know it today. Our philosophies were begun by this great being, and every planet we have contacted has known of this great being in various forms and under numerous names, but their civilizations have, in their histories, always been studded by parallaxes of events created by a being who seemingly came from nowhere in space to help in the various junctions, to imbue and imbibe within their civilization, just as ours, a new and creative sociological philosophy. We had many wars and strifes before this era began, and we knew not of the advancements of the mind. Yet this was a great turning point. And as you look about you in this museum, you will see the great refineries, the arts and the architecture, as we devised it from a philosophical plan, from a scientific plan, which was laid down for us by our founder. After this great being came to our planet, many others followed, incarnating at various times to help restore and renew and give renaissance to the original founding thought.
So then you could say that you Martian people have made a great progression in your evolutionary climb. And it is very understandable, this reincarnating principle, that although this devastation seemed to be a very drastic thing, yet the end result will have served in a very wonderful and progressive purpose, for it has brought you that much more closer together, and has given you the opportunity to observe and learn in a way you would not have done. So evidently, if we look far and deep enough, we can see the good in all things.
Yes, we very much include in our philosophies the idea of resurgent cycles and the concept that these things must come about for our own growth, as stagnation is the counter-mandate of evolutionary principles, as we have been taught by our founding fathers, and the great being which came to us in her most magnificent beauty many eons ago. So our beautiful and lust civilization has only taken a turn for us to learn how to survive in the mind without the necessity of outward physical inspiration. And even though the surface of our planet has not as yet been repopulated by us, we will in the future devise a great technology and restore the atmospheric content and give rebirth to our outside. In this interim time, we have learned to give birth to the inside, to the inner man, and we have learned to cope with the confines of our physical bodies in these underground cities.
So your contact with beings on the higher spiritual worlds would doubtless supply you with any necessary information to help to purify the atmosphere when that time approaches.
Yes, we have come to many crisis junctions in our past civilizations, and we have always had the necessary beings incarnated at those times to help bring in these various instrumentations, such as our chemical transformation machines, to help us preserve our water systems, our air recycling systems. And they were all scientific breakthroughs for us at the time. Yet we have learned in our contact with other worlds that all we thought was new to some civilizations is old. They had learned these things many eons before our birth upon the planet, or even the birth of this planet in this solar system.
What you are saying then, that man is simply contacting various points of infinity in his evolutionary climb.
Yes, this is the one basic concept which all must learn, that they are only receiving knowledge, never creating it. For all worlds and planets, other or higher than the Earth world, function thusly from or by this higher mental or psychic help from the inner worlds. This is the one great difference in the Earth people. You have not yet learned this vital importance of inner or higher attunement with spiritual beings on higher worlds. But that is all a part of your future, more progressive evolution. We could demonstrate for you from others of these miniaturized seedlings many other expressionists that would be beyond your belief to conceive, but we are not desirous of confounding you or to boast in any way, but rather to demonstrate some of the future in store for you.
I think anyone who comes here to Mars as we have can't help but feel a great respect for all that your people have accomplished. But I'm sure the people would miss more than anything would be the beautiful vision of the stars and the planetary heavenly bodies. But it is wonderful they can look forward to again viewing these, their sun and the stars and the moon.
Yes, indeed. This is our great wish for our future. No man wishes to live devoid of these great stellar visions and to peer into the night sky. which gives each man an inspiration. Yet we do have preserved in our museums great machinery, which we will construct and use again, to peer not only into the physical stars, but we have developed our science to the point where we can look into these machines and see the vortexual lines of force. We do also, even as
God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of the day. I now am wise, I now am true, patient, kind, and loving too. All things I am, can do, and be through Christ the truth that is in me. God is my health. I can't be sick. God is my strength unfailing, quick. God is my all. I know no fear, since God and love and truth are here. Amen.
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Welcome to Peppermint Place.
I don't know, Mr. Wiggly. I can't explain it. It's just a strange feeling. Here comes Mr. Peppermint. Maybe he could help me out. Hi, Mr. Peppermint.
Hi, Muffin. Hi, Mr. Wiggly.
You know what? I was just telling Mr. Wiggly, I've got the strangest feeling, Mr. Peppermint, I've never had before. And just like maybe something nice is about to happen or something.
Well, Muffin, maybe you have serendipity.
No, I feel okay, Mr. Peppermint.
Well, serendipity isn't being sick. Serendipity is the gift of having something good happen to you without even trying to have it happen, or the gift of finding something without looking for it.
Spell it for me, Mr. Peppermint.
Okay. S-E-R-E-N-D-I-P-I-T-Y.
Why?
Serendipity.
Serendipity. Gosh. There goes that blood. Uh-oh. There it goes.
Good for you.
Serendipity. That's a good sounding word, Mr. Peppermint.
Yes, it is.
Have you ever had serendipity?
Oh, yeah. When I met Mr. Wigglyworm, that was serendipity.
What you mean?
Remember Mr. Wiggly? I was walking down Peppermint Creek, flipping peppermints, not knowing what was going to happen. I flipped one, and I dropped it, and it landed right on Mr. Wigglyworm's nose. And had I not dropped it, we never would have met.
That's how you met him in the first place, isn't it?
That was serendipity.
That's serendipity.
Well, listen, Muffin, I have to go because I got to meet Gigi.
Okay.
I'll check with you later.
Okay, Mr. Peppermint. Serendipity, serendipity, serendipity.
You know, just when I thought it was all over, a hand lifted me high in the air. It was my shepherd. Was I happy to see him? And my shepherd was happy to see me, too. He forgave all the bad things I did that day. And do you know why? Because my shepherd is Jesus, the Good Shepherd. He always forgives us, no matter what. Really, Jesus loves us in a very special way. He's the best friend anyone could have. Would you like to help me sing this song to him? Our Good Shepherd loves each one of us. He takes care of us. He keeps us safe. We'll always stay with our shepherd. Our shepherd loves us one and all. We'll always stay with our shepherd. Our shepherd loves us one and all. We're always happy when we're with our shepherd. Our shepherd knows us each by name. We're always happy when we're with our shepherd. Our shepherd loves us one and all. Our shepherd loves us one and all. We love our shepherd. Our shepherd is Jesus. Jesus loves us, and we love him. We always want to stay with Jesus. Our shepherd loves us one and all. We always want to stay with Jesus. Our shepherd loves us one and all. We're always happy when we're with our shepherd. Our shepherd knows us each by name. We're always happy when we're with our shepherd. Our shepherd
Will thou thou come, just for once come to me? Will thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee?
Miss Molly, you know that popcorn is my favorite food. But do you think that monkeys like popcorn?
I don't know, Up. Do you know what monkeys love to eat?
Bananas. And did you know that bananas grow on plants? Well, our friend Kimball went to see some banana plants. Let's watch.
Oh, banana plants. Oh, look at all these banana plants. Oh, I wonder what it would be like to be a banana plant. You know, if I was a banana plant, I'd have to stand in one place all the time, and my skin would be really tough, and the hot sun would beat down on me, and I'd get tired and hot and lonely, and I think I'll just look at them. You know, most people think banana plants are trees. They're not trees. Their stalks are really made up of leaves tightly rolled together. Looks like a tree trunk. You know, when they pick bananas, they pick them when they're still green. They turn yellow and get ripe on the way to the store. Then you put them on your cereal. In tropical countries, some people eat bananas all the time. They eat them for their main food. Can you imagine eating bananas all day long? I can. Some people even make houses out of banana trees. They unroll the leaves and weave them into a special kind of house called a thatched hut. Can you imagine living in a banana house and eating bananas all the time? Well, I sure have enjoyed looking at the bananas today, haven't you? Let's go back to Rump.
What the statesmen had already accomplished in the sphere of politics through our Declaration of Independence and through the political unfoldment here in America, Emerson applied to culture, to ideas, to religion. Not by action, not by social upheavals, but by exhortation and by the compelling argument of his own reason. In an introduction to his first book in 1836, he said, "Our age is retrospective. Why should we not also enjoy an original relation to the universe? Why should not we have a poetry, a philosophy of insight, and not a tradition, and a religion by revelation to us? Why should we not have our own first-hand and immediate experience of God? Let us demand our own works and laws and worship." Most people thought of Emerson, at least at one period, as an extreme radical. And we know a lot about radicals in our day. We may not like them, but we've had a lot of them. Actually, Emerson was a very mild, frail, friendly, and extremely loving and kind person. He lived quietly in Concord, Massachusetts, like one of the most respected of citizens. He was not an overt radical like Thoreau. Now, Thoreau was his contemporary. Thoreau probably was his disciple. They lived in the same town, had a great admiration for one another. They shared concepts almost totally and completely, but they were entirely different characters. Emerson was a very conservative, mild-mannered, loving, kind person. Thoreau was a person who had to be outdoing. So he's the one that originated most of the social protest that goes on in our day. As a matter of fact, Thoreau at one time was in jail for war resistance. We've heard that in our day too, haven't we? And so Emerson, as a very good friend, went over to visit Thoreau in jail. And Thoreau saw him coming. He smiled and they shook hands. And finally Emerson said, "What are you doing in there?" And Thoreau, looking him right in the eye, looked out through the bars and he said, "What are you doing out there?" Because he knew that they both shared the same concerns and the same ideals and concepts, but Thoreau was a doer. He was a protester. He was a radical. Emerson devoted his life in the more subtle process of expressing concepts and helping people to change their own values. Emerson came from a long line of New England clergymen. He looked like a clergyman. He acted like one. His father was a minister. He was born in 1803 in Boston, and after a sickly childhood, he completed his education at Harvard, graduated at 18, went on to divinity school, just as naturally as a farmer's son goes off to agricultural school, and eventually became the pastor of the same church that his father had preached in. But all the while, from early along in life, the formal customs of religious observance had been very distasteful. He was a free thinker in the general sense of the word. So this word has connotations of atheism, and Emerson was no atheist, though he's been called that. To me, it's one of the sad things of all the ages that some of the greatest thinkers that the world has produced have grown up and lived out their lives in restrictions and disciplines of formal religion. This, unfortunately, is what religion has done in so many cases. It has actually restricted the creative thought processes of many, many people. An interesting illustration is the Teilhard de Chardin, a contemporary illustration. Catholic priest, a paleontologist, who expressed some unorthodox views concerning evolution and the origins and processes of life, and was forbidden by the church to ever publish these views. So under the discipline of an order and sincere in his beliefs, he followed this man. But he made arrangements to have them published after he died, when the church had no more authority over him, which in a sense was a very, very good thing as far as mankind is concerned, because these manuscripts have unfolded some of the most profound scientific, theological, and metaphysical insights in the past 100 years. All of this was hidden under a bushel, under the disciplines and the restrictions of a church. And this is no negative comment upon the church, but it is one of the things that Emerson, from his earliest years, was rebelling against, even though he was a part of the church for a good while. So we find Emerson going through this same process, the same inner struggle that Teilhard and many others had gone through. But finally, he found that he could not, in good conscience, follow what to him did not make sense and what he couldn't be honest with. And first of all, he found that he couldn't follow the ritual of the Holy Communion. He debated it with his fellow ministers. No one would listen to him. Everybody thought, you're supposed to accept. You don't question these things. So one Sunday morning he got up in his pulpit, and in a very significant and historic address, he announced to his congregation that he could no longer administer the sacrament of Holy Communion conscientiously, and therefore he was resigning. His essay, The Lord's Supper, is one of the classic essays. Unfortunately, it's not one that is found in many of the more popular editions, and this is one of the sad things about Emerson. He wrote so much about so many subjects, one of the most prolific essayists of all time, and many of them are really not available. In this, The Lord's Supper, he argues that Jesus did not intend to establish an institution for perpetual observance when he ate the Passover with his disciples, and that therefore it is not expedient that we celebrate it in this way. And he gives some pretty strong arguments, so obviously they would be horribly anathema to the institution. And therefore the comments he makes, though they're very logical, have not been heard too much, especially in religious circles. He points out that Jesus did not celebrate the Passover and afterwards the Lord's Supper. The Last Supper was the Passover. Jesus did with his disciples exactly what every master of a family in Jerusalem was doing at the same time with his household. Jesus and his disciples were good Jews. Well, this is obvious, and most people have unconsciously known this, but to a large extent we haven't related this. And therefore it has always kind of been presented in a way that Jesus was the center of Christianity, and he was surrounded by Jews who were rebelling against him and so forth, and that thereby this Last Supper was a kind of an isolated, beautiful experience surrounded by these pagans who were keeping the Passover. Jesus and his disciples were Jews. They'd been reared in the tradition of the Hebrew peoples, and they kept the Passover like everybody else. And he said that it was because of Jesus' practice to teach by symbols But while they're sitting there having their Passover feast, Jesus, always the teacher, took this opportunity to teach by the symbols that were used, the bread and the wine, the very food that was being used. And he was saying, now, inasmuch as you're always going to do this anyway because you're good Jews, why not do it in remembrance of me? And the me here was not pointing to Jesus, but as we understand the general context in which he taught, the me represented the body of ideas and of consciousness that I am generating. And therefore do it in remembrance of the truth, in other words. So then he said, let the bread be an evidence of the flesh and the wine, of the blood, of the larger consciousness of the unfolding process of life. And this was always intended simply to be a teaching symbol by which they could take something vital out of something that otherwise was very static. He points out that Jesus lived and died to redeem men from formal religion. And that's certainly a far cry from, of course, the way in which Christianity is presented. And this is why, of course, he was an atheist to many of the more traditional Christian theologians. That he felt that Jesus lived and died to teach us to seek our well-being in the formation of the soul within ourselves. Now, obviously, in making this statement, he created a kind of a barrier and burned his bridge behind it. The people of his congregation loved Emerson, but they also were traditional Christians, and they thought it best to retain the Lord's Supper and dispense with Emerson, which they did. But they parted friends, which is something of a commentary on the unique character of Emerson, even though he was generally hated by the Christian theologians of his day and down through the years since, yet he was always admired and respected as a person. Emerson then made a historic address at the Harvard Divinity School. He felt the urge to challenge the young people.
Fly away without seeing thee, my Lord, night and day, night and day. I look for thee night and day, night and day, night and day. I look for thee night and day.
Of our planet with great lenses. They can be opened up to view into the night sky, even though we do not go to the surface ourselves, for we have devised great lenses, prisms, and machinery to go with these crystals, so we will not be stopped from seeing these wonders of nature. We have observatories that have been constructed in a domed fashion, like on your Earth. And we have lighted shows for the people to study and map the stars.
I noticed you do have a mock-up of the heavens, and that I'm only viewing this from a great distance. This must be so that the people will not feel completely isolated from the amassment of heavenly bodies. It is very realistic, the sky, portrayed in this dark blue background on the gold and sparkling stars. It's all very effective. This replica would help one to remember and to become conscious of these stars.
And, as you may know, for any interstellar traveler, the stars must be mapped, so we will know where we are going and to which body. So even on our spaceships, when we fly interstellarly, we have these great space maps or moving constellations, and there are beautiful scenes shown on our screens. So even though the ship is enclosed entirely by the metallic substance, we can peer out into the so-called void of space and see where we are going, toward which constellation we are traveling. In other words, this screen points out the path of our flight, and when we do come close to a planet or a sun, we can activate this screen, as is depicted in many of your Earth stories. And this can be done very easily by the use of pathometry or telemetry. So we can study these planets, these stellar bodies at close range. This is another way in which we educate our people, not only by light shows, but we take them on various educational trips to other planets to study the various stellar bodies up close, including our own sun.
Of course, we are all interested in the various craft. The co-pilot did tell us on the way here that they were much larger spaceships than the one in which we came. Will you tell us about them?
Yes, indeed. We have ships that travel intergalactically, and from one galaxy to another. Even though we would be traveling in hyperspace, still it would take us many years to traverse the galactic space. So we have built ships that are actually cities, and many civilizations we have met in our journeys through space have this same type of ship. It is most magnificent and beautiful in structure and form, completely enclosed within itself environmentally. And we carry along with us all of our growing foodstuffs. We cultivate various portions of the ship with vegetation so that we can grow our own food. We have, in fact, taken our own civilization with us in all of its refineries and mechanizations. We have even taken many of our children along on these intergalactic trips, and they would come back in manhood or womanhood with a vast array of knowledge and associated wisdom. They would know of other peoples on other worlds and other planets, and had learned of their ways of life.
What would you say would be the limited number of people that your largest craft would carry?
Well, our normal-sized craft would carry 5,000 on one journey. However, we have met civilizations whose craft hold up to 1 million people and can be considered a planet unto itself, a wanderer throughout interstellar space, you might say. We have devised the technology which allows our ship to accelerate at a constant velocity along certain strong lines of force that crisscross this universe. So we are in constant communication with these vast interlacing networks, or lines of force, with other civilizations, who are also, we might say, so-called flying along these vast and strong force fields, and we are pointing all of our atoms in one direction, so there is no resistive force. Therefore, the speed which we go is in accordance with the pulse of the line of force with which we are connected. All people who traverse space in a more or less third-dimensional, fourth-dimensional spectrum know these great scientific laws of the infinite. Our planet at one time was a vast and beautiful green, lush world. We did not have the nations separating the peoples. We were able to travel from continent to continent, as we did have vast oceans at this past time, and could learn of all of the vast intricacies of nature, as all planets, peopled in a physical world, are placed there, as we have learned in our evolutionary course to incept within them all of the knowledge of the fountainhead as it exists in the third dimension.
So in all probability, were it possible that our Earth scientists could really build a craft to spend time on Mars, they would very likely be able to locate what has been the oceans and the mountains. For as we have come on our exploring devices, we have only touched upon 1 or 2 very small areas.
Yes, it is within the scope of their future to learn of these things. However, we are sad to say, when the nova did pass, the initial force actually vaporized all of the H2O and siphoned it off into space. What remnants remain in the northern and southern hemispheres you refer to as polar caps, and are all that is left after this great catastrophe. We knew this would happen, And so we devised plans to recycle our water supply and actually, literally, create this in the laboratories so we could exist many years into the future without the necessity of going to another planet and importing this very necessary liquid for the support of our physical anatomies.
I suppose you know that you're going to have by now a great difficulty in getting me to go back to planet Earth. How can one want to go back to our home planet after seeing all of this beauty and love expressed?
We know that you are here for the specific purpose to take all of this back to planet Earth and to help make planet Earth not only great as you see these greatnesses on our planet, but to rebuild Earth into the lush and verdant growth, and we, in our hearts, go with you. We speak to the children of Earth and the peoples throughout the galaxy who do not know of these things with open heart and with compassionate mind, as we are very well aware of our own pasts and struggles. We know of the persistence on the part of our brothers on high, who reside in worlds which even we are hard-pressed to conceive, to envision not only utopian existences on physical worlds, as that is only the beginning of our evolution, to learn of the infinite, finite space and its revolving planets, but to know greater things, which is of the mind, and to preserve these things, more than in globes or fluid substances. But the hyperfluid must be preserved in the mind. For when we leave the physical here and we lay down our bodies, we take with us the memories of all that we have learned, and we rise up into another dimension, into another way of life, which crystallizes all that we have learned.
And when you are ready to return from the spiritual to express into another physical body for further learnings of life, would you say that you return again to this planet Mars?
Most of us have been returning many centuries to overcome our inhibitions and to develop our technological advances. For you see, we have more or less attached ourselves to this planet, psychically speaking. However, many souls are new to our planet, and we have devised ways in our incubation period to know when a soul has newly attached himself to our psychic realm and in our own auras. More often than not, most of us do come back life after life to this planet, as our loved ones are here and we have established great bonds and ties with them. Yet we do realize that some of us have evolved to the point where we must establish ourselves anew to another planet, to evolve a greater state of consciousness. We have realized and learned in our past ages of development that one cannot attach himself permanently to any one place, but that he must become a free soul to evolve throughout infinity. There is a very constructive reason why a person comes back.
Now, this is another of the important works of Emerson that is not always included in the collections that you get. I mention this so that you don't run frantically to every collection and find that you can't find it. It's the Divinity School of written. You do find it. It's a very important document. As a matter of fact, I'm seriously considering reproducing it and making it available to those who may be interested. After this address, Emerson was denounced on every hand as an atheist, and he suddenly became anathema to all the traditional church, and he was never allowed to preach in a pulpit after that all his life. But then he made a great discovery, very interesting. He discovered that people would listen receptively on weeknights to things they called blasphemous on Sunday. And so he spent the rest of his life as probably the most popular lecture circuit speaker, as it were, in America, and one of the most popular and the most listened to of all the history of America. He went all over the land, speaking everywhere to great throngs of people. He was always in demand as a speaker. Now, he was an ex-preacher, denouncing the church, as it were, in a very subtle way. but helping not just cutting the thing down, but helping people to get a new insight into an inward relationship. And yet he was accepted. Even the preachers that denounced him on Sunday came to listen to him on Tuesday. People obviously wanted this kind of inward awareness, but they were all under the disciplines of the Sunday religion. Philosophically, Emerson is referred to as a transcendentalist. I don't like this kind of pigeonholing. So often I'm asked by someone after I talk, say, to a college professor or something, what are you? Are you a pantheist or a transcendentalist or a Unitarian, or what are you? And I say I'm just me on the quest for truth. I don't like this pigeonholing thing. But still, philosophy has seemed compelled to do this kind of thing. So he's considered a transcendentalist. And the moment we concern ourselves with what is called transcendentalism, we think backward, as philosophy always does, to the antecedents, and so we find Immanuel Kant, who's considered to be the father of modern transcendentalism. I don't suggest, for those of you, and most of you are, who are bookworms, I don't suggest you go and get a book on Kant and try to read him. His works are abstruse and not readily understandable, to say the least, to any but the most conditioned philosophical student. There are those who say that if you want to know what Kant is talking about, read Emerson, because he speaks the language of the people. I'm not saying that Emerson was just simply a reflector of Kant, but that somehow he fits into that stream. He was an original thinker, without any question. But transcendentalism is the conception that, from a philosophical point of view, that there can be knowledge of transcendental elements, which means that you can actually know something like God. You see, the philosophers, well, God, just an abstract idea. How can anybody know God? But in transcendentalism, there is the awareness or belief that you can actually know things that are wholly beyond ordinary experience of the human mind. And it is diametrically opposed to the idea that holds that all knowledge arises purely and simply from sensation and experience. And it's totally opposed to the agnostic view that reality is unknowable. But transcendentalism has a new meaning under Emerson's influence. It has come to mean the immanence of divinity in man, working through intuition. It has come to indicate the idea of a wholeness of man which is beyond just the physical. Not man with a soul tacked on, but man as a whole creature in an unfolding process. And the interesting thing, this is the paradox of Emerson being called atheistic by theologians, that Emerson turned from traditional theology, which put its total center in creeds and rituals, which were all on the outside. Man going to church, man taking the sacraments, man doing things, picking up his prayer book and speaking words, so that it was all exteriorly oriented. Emerson turned from this to place the center in the inward relationship of man with the depth of the spirit within. And for that he was called an atheist, and is still called an atheist by many. Listen to a fundamentalist today, ask him about Emerson. He hits the roof, Emerson, why? That atheist, that agnostic. A transcendentalist is sometimes referred to as a sublimated theist. He doesn't believe in the devil, he doesn't believe in hell, he doesn't believe in evil, he doesn't believe in any kind of dualism, he doesn't believe in religious authority, he doesn't talk about at least a savior or emphasize a church. In many ways he appears to be a humanist. This is why the Unitarians have latched on Emerson as their own personal property in a sense. He is totally optimistic, but he believes in the integrity of man and his oneness with the dynamic universe. And if that doesn't give you much of an insight, then just kind of go along with us now to see some of the feelings and thoughts of Emerson and see if he doesn't seem to indicate to you where modern metaphysics really started. For instance, in the first paragraph of his essay on history, he says, "There is one mind common to all individual men. Every man is an inlet to the same and to all of the same. He that is admitted to the right of reason is made a free man of the whole estate. What Plato has thought, he may think. What a saint has felt, he may feel. What at any time has befallen any man, he can understand. Who hath access to this universal mind is a party to all that is or can be done, for this is the only and sovereign agent.
Why should we do something nice? Let's quit now, that's my advice. We can't do anything by working with each other.
I ain't gonna work for free. Tell me what's in this for me.
We can't do anything by working with each other.
Come on, kids, take a shot. Show them what we really got.
We can't do anything by working with each other. La 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 la. Can't stop now. We got a job to do, and we are me and you. We can't do anything by working with each other.
Help a friend out of a mess. Put your friendship to the test.
We can't do anything by working with each other. La 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 la. Can't stop now. We got a job to do, and we are me and you. So come on, guys, no, it ain't smart. We'll borrow tools to do our part. We can't do anything by working with each other. Step up. We can't do anything by working with each other.
Work it out and do your best. Don't give up on your success.
We can't do anything by working with each other.
Concentrate on what you do. Back or down, it's up to you.
We can't do anything by working with each other. We can't do anything by working with each other. We can't do anything by working with each other.
And that is to work out or to polarize, as we prefer to call it, the many and numerous experiences which that plane affords us. When we have experienced that need in our evolutionary climb, then we scale another state of consciousness, which might reside completely across the universe, on another world.
Since we do have a little time yet, I noticed no signs of sick or crippled people on your moving sidewalks or in the overhead tram we were riding in. Is this an indication of the higher percentage of health or life that the Martian people have achieved?
Yes, we have long ago eliminated physical disease on our planet, as we have great immunization centers for disease-carrying bacteria, which space travelers might bring back with them. Also, we have great medical laboratories and energizers, which correct any physical malady before it begins in the person's energy body. If a person has some kind of a physical problem which he was directed from birth to inspect, he can communicate this problem to our medical advisors. Then the situation is analyzed by our psychic anatomy scanners, and the malformation is quickly corrected before the deteriorating disease is taken into the person. And then we have what we call preventative medicine, which is practiced to a very high degree in scientific form. That is, each person is taught to be mentally alert to his own physical, his own emotional disease, so that he can correct any kind of mentally assimilated factor, so he will not incur
Oh, come to me. You know it's really you I must see. Here to me soon, my lovely lady of the moon. shall serve her till you're dead. I will see your soul in hell, and I'll take your life as well.
Which I have never heard or dreamed of. This paradise is truly far too much to conceive at any one brief time. But we must relate how the tubes between the cities, which connect them, are in no way neglected for the
You led me to the slaughter. My love was poured out just like water. I can't live without you. You turned on me, my life is through.